Hey guys, what's going on? It's Daitooka and I'm back with another Season 4 changes and impressions video, and today we're going to be doing Josie Resolve. So I'll be discussing the changes that she's seen in Season 4. I'll go through her changes as well as just sharing my opinions and thoughts on them, as well as how I think they'll affect her gameplay. In advance, I just want to say I am so mad at myself at this point for not really sticking to her that much. I still played her over the years, just not as much as my Kazuya. I'm mainly just mad because of how many buffs she's received since Season 1. I think back in Season 1 she wasn't an amazing character, but now in Season 4 as well, she's an exceptionally strong character in Tekken 7. In my opinion, possibly underrated. Of course, on this channel, I upload many different kinds of Tekken content, from tutorials to even tournament matches, so I highly recommend you subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. But other than that, let's just get right into it. And first up, we have a change to her Switch Stance 1. And Switch Stance 1, as we know, is one of her best options out of Switch Stance. It's of course, the high elbow counter hit launcher that is uninterruptible on block or on hit after any Switch Stance transition. It used to actually be -7 on block. However, they have pretty much removed any real disadvantage here. Now it's only -1 on block. Bear in mind, Switch Stance 1 actually leaves your opponent crouching. So if your opponent blocks this, they're left at -1 in a crouching status. If they use a 13 frame mid after blocking this move, you'll actually counter hit launch them, as their magic 4 is 12 frames. Personally, I think this change is almost ridiculous. At the moment, I just think this makes the change undeniably the strongest option out of Switch Stance. But at this point, I guess to be quite conservative, I would just say that it makes Switch Stance 1 a lot more scarier for the opponent to manage now. Overall, a really good buff here. Now, secondly, in Season 4, we see a new move for Josie, which is actually a new Switch Stance transition move, and it is 1+4. To be honest, I think it's a bit of a janky animation, but it's kind of similar to War Drums, as it's a high and a low at the same time. The big difference that it has, though, with other Switch Stance moves is that if your opponent is hit, or if they're even just standing guarding this move, it'll be +11 no matter what. So as long as the low connects, Josie's going to be left +11, just like her other Switch Stance moves on block. Of course, this means that there is no guaranteed Switch Stance 1, but you do get, with this new move, I think it's strong in a way that you actually get guaranteed damage into a further mix-up. So you get 12 damage that's fully guaranteed if they don't block low, and you get a full Switch Stance mix-up, which of course leads to counter hit launch potential. On block, it is actually 0, so if they do block the low here, I'll just demonstrate. If they do block low, you are left at 0, so due to the speed of all of her follow-ups out of Switch Stance, you can at least be interrupted by, for example, a while standing 4. Because one of her quickest options is Switch Stance 1, you can actually be launched by some characters before the move comes out. Overall, I think this new move almost makes Josie's Switch Stance busted. It's really strong here because you have a mix-up now with your Switch Stance mix-up on top of that. So you have a Switch Stance mix-up, and then you have a mix-up as to how you're going to get into Switch Stance. So you either have something like down forward 4, which of course was annoying enough before, and now you also have a move where you actually have to block low in order to avoid the Switch Stance mix-ups. So mixing up between down forward 4 as well as the new 1+4 is gonna make Switch Stance transitioning really strong, and it already is really strong. Big buff here for Josie. Her rage art has also been changed slightly in Season 4. They've extended the frame by 1 depending on the range. So now it's either it's either 20 frames quick or it's 21 frames quick. Of course, this depends on range. I'm not sure how this really affects her rage art. Personally, I'm guessing this affects its usability at certain ranges. Let me know if you're aware what this change actually really does, because I'm kind of struggling to see how this would really matter too much in a real match. Her 3-3 has also been slightly changed in Season 4, with a very similar change to her rage art in terms of actually changing the second hit of 3-3's frames depending on range. So the second hit used to be consistently 23 frames, now it can either be 23 frames or 24, depending on the range. A minor change here that I just don't really think will make too much of an impact at all. Josie's forward 3 has actually been buffed slightly on block here in Season 4. It used to be -14, but now it's actually down to -13. A small buff in terms of punishment, I guess. However, the move is still quite unsafe on block. I wouldn't really recommend throwing it out too much, even though it's a lot safer on block, now at -13. Next, we have a small nerf to essentially her, I guess, her overall combo damage. This was Josie's new move in Season 3, so it's forward 2, 3, 3. And the last hit, the last 3 in this string has actually seen a small nerf in terms of damage. So it was 30 damage before at full scaling, and now it's actually 28 damage. So you can see there. I guess this combo change only really, I guess, realistically affects her combo damage when used as an ender. It is a really good ender because of its long distance reach. On this stage, it is way too close even to use this in a combo. But even if I use it like this, you can see how far it just allows you to wall splat your opponent. Albeit, it is a very minor reduction in terms of scaling even. You know, if you talking about 30 damage as opposed to 28 damage, it's less than 10% lower than what it was before. A very minor nerf here in my opinion that I don't think will bring her combo damage too far down at all. Now, forward 3 has also seen changes in Season 4, and I think it's a move of Josie that a lot of people actually tend to neglect. It does have a lot of utility in combos, but it also has a lot of utilities even in the open. It's essentially a safe mid counter hit launcher, as well as having decent frames on hit as well as on block. So it's only -3 on block, so you're pretty much free to move as you please after so. And it is +8 on hit, so you have a very big advantage here. And you can see here it is a counter hit launcher. In Season 4, they've given yet another reason to use this move by actually increasing the tracking. So we'll just test it briefly here. So I've set her to sidestep right. So as you can see there, it still tracks slightly. If we set her to sidestep left, it still evades there. There you go. So even with the increased tracking, you can still actually sidestep this left. Considering the change that has been done on forward 3 in Season 4, I can see it actually being used more now. And with increased tracking, it should help Josie to at least maybe counter hit launch opponents, or at least hit opponents that are attempting to sidestep right. If you sidestep left, you can still actually evade this move in most situations. If you have a lot of frame advantage, you know, if it's something like +5, I think you'd still be able to track your opponent to your weak side, which is Josie's right, actually. She is known for having some linear weakness, and I think people can be quite step happy against her. So when used well, if you have some decent frame advantage, I think using forward 3 to deter opponents from stepping in this situation is going to be a really good change for her. Another interesting change here is actually a change to her down forward 1-4-2 string. They've essentially given the last hit of the string, the ability to counter hit launch your opponent. This is the string here if you don't know what it looks like, and I'll show you what the new counter hit launch actually looks like. So it's kind of similar to her switch stance down switch stance 1. It's a very similar animation, if not the same animation. And of course, this counter hit launch isn't actually guaranteed unless the last hit itself is a hit on counter hit. Personally, I've always found this move a bit useless. You know, since even an intermediate level, the second hit itself can actually be very easily low parried due to the timing difference that it has with its counterpart mid. And even so, if you don't low parry the second hit, the last hit is a high. Hence, I can only really see this change really being effective in lower ranks, but I guess on the other side of this, I think it isn't a bad move to maybe throw out once in a while, because not a lot of people are used to it. If you think your opponent won't expect it, I think it's definitely a move to give a go, just throwing out every now and then, because if they happen to press after down forward 1-4, you know, you can catch them out there and get a free counter hit launch. So that's the kind of damage you could expect if you did get this move on counter hit. But even with that potential damage you can get, I don't think it makes this string OP or anything like that. So it is a fair change in my opinion. Back 2 has also been buffed here for Josie in Season 4. So there have been changes to increase the lower range of the attack. So I guess some characters using moves that have some high evasion will have a harder time doing so now. And they've actually also increased the tracking. Now what's interesting is that sometimes Nina can still actually step here. Even at +8, you can still step Josie here to her weak side. Yeah, sidestep right, of course, isn't going to work here because Josie tends to have an easier time tracking to this side. Okay, so it looks like here it tends to track when your opponent goes for a sidewalk, or even, maybe even not. And similarly with the sidewalk left, Nina tends to step it every now and then. Sometimes she doesn't, sometimes she does. So I guess they've very slightly increased the tracking here. And of course you still have access to the counter hit throw animation that you get from this, which gives you 45 damage. However, increasing the lower range as well as the tracking, at least very slightly, definitely makes the move much more viable in a real match. Hence, trying to achieve the big reward of a potential counter hit will become a lot easier now. Crouch Dash 2, also known as CD2, is one of my favorite whiff punishes to use with Josie, as it actually always felt similar to an electric because of the input. Of course, it is slower at 17 frames and it is -14 on block. However, they've actually quite greatly increased the range here. I know beforehand it was, you know, tended to be quite stubby. But I think this range increase is actually quite considerable, and I think it makes it a lot more viable as a whiff punish tool. As I said, I think it was lacking some range beforehand, hence the increased range will definitely help with reaching further to whiff punish opponents. A really good change here to see for Josie. Crouch Dash 1+2, also known as CD 1+2, is one of her best mids in my opinion, as it leaves you +5 and it does, you know, you are in an airborne status so you can evade lows. On top of it being +5 on block, it is, of course, a counter hit launcher, similar to Switch Stance 1. But they've essentially changed the startup frames from 24 to 26 frames to 24 to 27 frames. Again, I'm not really sure what these changes really mean for the move. You know, what these kind of changes do in terms of the startup frame window. At this point, I'm starting to think that it actually might have to do with increasing the active frames for the move. Considering it would be across three different frames rather, depending on the range, and of course at its fastest speed it would be 24 frames. I think it would be a very good buff in that case, if that is what it is. I think if that is what is being done here with the increased active frames, make it 27 frames at its very end, I think that's a pretty considerable buff there. Furthermore, that they've actually increased the lower range of the attack, so this should help Josie to stop opponents that may evade her using CD 1+2 in certain situations. Decent buffs here overall for CD 1+2, but nothing over the top in my opinion. Finally, we have some big buffs to Josie's full crouch down forward 4 with a decreased distance on hit, so your opponent is left a lot closer now, and you are +7. This just means that the opponent is going to be left very close to Josie on hit, meaning that any of her follow-ups afterwards are going to probably be no longer really possible to avoid now. They've also increased its range here, so we can see Josie's just about range 3 there. So of course it's going to hit from here. If we move a little bit back, I think that's about as far as it would reach before. Wow, okay. The range has actually been, wow, that's a really big increase for range. I don't remember it being that long. Okay, so it's definitely not too much further than range 3. Wow, that's a really good range buff there. I didn't even realize it was actually increased by that much. Personally, I think these are some pretty big buffs here to one of her best lows. Of course, it is still launch punishable. However, considering the increase of range, as well as making the opponent closer on hits now, makes the move a lot scarier to deal with for the opponent. Overall, some very decent buffs. I don't think it makes the move OP or anything, like too overpowered. But since it is one of my favorite lows to use with her, I think I'll enjoy this change quite a bit. Just quickly, in my initial recording, I somehow skipped 2 of the changes, so I'll just quickly cover them. The first one I missed was to her down forward 3+4, so it's her Power Crush. The attack startup, similar to some of the other moves on this list, changed slightly, so it was usually 22 frames quick. Now it varies between 22 and 23 depending on the range. They've also increased the range, so I believe, I could notice this pretty much when I first started using it, that it actually has even more range as opposed to before. They've also made changes to a down back 4 to 3 string, so that's this string here. It's not that strong in the open in my personal opinion, however it does become quite useful at the wall as a great Oki and high damage wall combo. However, they have changed the block frames for the last hit from 16 frames down to 14. So not too many characters can launch you now, but for example, Josie herself can still get a knockdown punish. For the Season 4 patch, I really think the biggest changes for Josie come from her new move, which is 1+4. Also the CD2 range buff, as well as her buffs to her full crouch down forward 4. And also not to forget the changes to her CD 1+2. I think those changes will make the biggest effect, or make the biggest effect on her gameplay in terms of improving it. Although the other changes were quite decent, I can only really see these changes greatly affecting her gameplay. Although the changes here are quite decent for Josie, with some very small nerfs for her in certain areas, I don't think this is going to change Josie's positioning too much in terms of, her positioning on a tier list. I can see the changes that I just mentioned affecting her gameplay in a positive way. Hence, I believe she's definitely a stronger character now in Season 4. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you found it useful and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like to let me know. And also leave a comment below as to what you think of Josie's changes in Season 4. And also what you think of Josie overall now that Season 4 has come around. I'm definitely curious to hear what you guys have to say because I think Josie is actually very underrated. I don't think a lot of people say she's as strong as she probably is, in my opinion. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my videos. Again guys, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later. Thanks.